It is Thompson to Clark, Brad Evans, and I, Double G. We are back, and we're gonna get into this because I want to talk. I'm almost frustrated in just having to discuss this.
About Joe? About
But
Joseph?
Joe Bart, no,
Joey.
no longer with the big club. I'm pretty bummed out. You would think that for somebody who hits like 210 with no home runs, I wouldn't be
It'd
this
be like,
bothered.
well, who cares? But
We're going to talk about Joe Bart here in a second, but we are also the backdrop for the Giants playing the Cardinals right now at Busch Stadium. Giants are up 2-0 in the fourth. I just watched Patrick Bailey gun somebody out trying to steal at second base, and I'm not sure the ball was much further than like 6 feet off the ground the entire way. What a laser that guy has.
I don't know if I'm caught up. I had a little bit of I got new AirPods, right? I jumped into the AirPod world.
There you go.
So now I'm like everybody else. Which is cool because they're fantastic. I've tried like 3 different brands of off-brand fake Bluetooth earbuds over the years. And I was like, well, these are great. My $30 pair are fantastic. There's nothing like this. I'm telling you.
No,
I'm
they're
an
great.
audio nut. So
Now there are some people who will say, well, my Bose headphones, or there are even these like really, really, really I wouldn't say, I don't know, hard to find or non-commercial or whatever, but like I'm on a Reddit, though Reddit is going through its times right now.
they are.
I'm on a Reddit of headphones, and like there's like these people who are just on it with headphones. You just know everything about them, and they can hear the little.
I won't join that group because
No.
I'll get lost.
No. I get lost too, but I kind of dig the passion. So I like reading the reviews of, and I'm just like, nope, I'm not going to change from, what I have, which are, the ones that people see. I specifically bought these to do podcasts because I still like the cord in rather than trusting the Bluetooth. Yeah. Even though the Bluetooth has gotten really good and you're right there with it, there's like no delay. It's just a trust issue with me.
Yeah.
But you know what I learned is that I have the Air Max, the Air Max pods, AirPods Max, AirPod Maxes. So they're the over the head ones. But again, it's Bluetooth. And now I found out that you can buy a USB-C plug so that I could plug directly into my Focusrite, just like I use with these. So that option will be there where it turns off the Bluetooth and it actually goes, through the plug. So that's kind of interesting to me. But then again, it's a headphone that I have to keep powered on. So, charging, and I don't know. We'll see. I like the ones that I have now, which I bought specifically for podcasts, but I'm very happy for you to discover the AirPods because as Apple does, it is so convenient. If you have an iPhone and you have an iMac and you have these everything just works. Like it just works. And so you're just like, oh,
that's the amazing thing, and honestly, the spatial audio, they say, Apple says, oh yeah, it's available on other Bluetooth headphones. So I had my earbuds. Tozo was the brand that I like. I like their stuff. I've used quite a few of their pairs of earbuds. But Apple says, oh yeah, if you have that, spatial audio will work, and it works. But then you put on the AirPods, and these are the 2s, the Pro 2s. You put those on and then you listen to spatial audio stuff on Apple Music, and it's like a completely different world. And I love every style of music. So I've been having fun. I'll listen to Melanie Martinez and Taylor Swift in spatial audio. I go, wow. And Billie Eilish. Oh, this is fantastic. Then I go like, have some John Coltrane and some Miles Davis in spatial audio. And I'm like, wow, I'm blown away. And then at night when I'm getting ready for bed, now that Apple has the new classical music app, I'll go to that and I'll find spatial audio classical music and listen to that while I'm getting ready for bed, and blown away by that. So this is like Disneyland times 10 for me right now. I'm having a really good time.
Yeah, we'll get off the headphone thing here in a second. But I will say that I bought the original AirPods when they came out. And I've had 2 pairs of those, the first one and the second one. And then when the Pros came out, I bought one as well, of the first gen. But then I moved to Beats because they sort of allow for the same stuff because it is technically Apple's company as well. And I just use those because those are like my workout headphones, and I don't feel as guilty beating those up like I do with the ones that are in your ears. And so
Yeah.
I just feel like, oh, I'm just gonna throw these in the pocket and let's go. And I'm not too worried about it. But all right, enough of me pushing off my sadness of Joe Bart. But I had this vision. I
Poor
had
Joe.
this dream. As we know, Joey Bart gets drafted number 2, the highest draft pick that the Giants had since Will the Thrill.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So over
1985. That's how
like,
long.
it's like 35 years or something since Will Clark was drafted and Joe Bart was the second pick. And because Buster Posey retired, he had to play, or no, it was actually Buster Posey decided not to play during the pandemic, I think is what it was, right? And then they had to bring up Bart before he was really ready. And he's struggled in the big club pretty much ever since. I had hoped that with Patrick Bailey's success this year, that it would kind of not that Joey Bart is not inspired to perform. Of course he's inspired to perform. He's a professional athlete. I thought it might give him a little bit of a kick in the pants and just be like,
Yeah.
wow, this guy who was drafted, a couple years after me has already caught me. And, I see it as like a little bit of a competitiveness for position. And my dream was that these guys would both play on the same team. If you're throwing a lefty, Joe Bart gets a start. If you're throwing a righty, Patrick Bailey gets a start. So it's probably like a 60-40 trade-off. And each guy gets to sit and relax. And, catching is a hard position. So you don't want them to play all 162. You want them, probably sitting in the 130s or the 120s. And so it'd be a nice trade-off, and it'd keep each other fresh and this young energy. And, Bailey's doing something good behind the plate, and Joe Bart goes, oh, this is what I need to work on. And sort of similarly at the bat. And then the Giants said, oh no, your dream is not our dream. It's not our plan. We're keeping Sable as the backup catcher on the roster. Joe Bart, you're going down to Sacramento again, where you are an absolute stud in the minors. And when you come up to the big club, not as much. So I don't know. What do you think he's thinking as the highest prospect in the Giants organization for a couple years? That he was number 1 on their board. And now he's back in the minors, and he's seen the guy who was drafted below him surpass him.
It's hard to know what he's thinking, because a lot of times, I mean, like, Kapler basically said the other day that Joey Bart said, I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to be ready for the club when they need me. We've heard a lot of that over the last couple of years, and I don't doubt his passion. I don't doubt that he can still become a good player, a good catcher, who hits maybe like, 260 or so in the majors with 15 home runs, and be a serviceable catcher. I still don't see that can't happen.
Right.
I just, it's not going to be with the Giants. It's just not going to be with the Giants at this point. He'll be up and he'll be down, and he'll be up and he'll be down, but he still has years. He still has control by the Giants. So I think in his head, he's probably thinking, well, I can either be moved or I can stay here and keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, his last great year in the minors, and not really a great year, but good year in the minors, was 2021, when Buster Posey had his final season in the majors. And looking at Bart's numbers at that time, in 2021 in Sacramento, he hit 294 in 67 games. and had 10 home runs in 252 at bats. So it's there. I mean, it's still there. God, I can't even imagine what he's thinking at this point. It's not a situation that we're too familiar with when we see a high draft pick like that from the Giants. Because again, I mean, the last time the Giants had a high draft pick was 1985. And it's hard for us to fathom like this is actually happening to Joey Bart. We thought fast track, going to be up to the bigs, going to really help out, especially in a position of need when Buster Posey retires. And we knew that it wasn't going to be like, well, here's the new Buster Posey. I mean, that's not. You're talking about a Hall of Fame catcher. You're talking about a 3-time world champion. You're talking about a rookie of the year. I don't know, man. I all I can say is he's probably pretty down on himself, and I know the quotes are going to say otherwise, but you've got to be down on yourself at this point. But you have to use that, and as a professional athlete, you really have to use that to try to turn things around. The Giants want him to make good decisions at the plate. They want him to put the ball in play. And you know, the Giants broadcast, they were just talking about Jordan Walker. You know, a high prospect for the Cardinals. He was trying to elevate everything because that was, you know, where baseball is going. Elevate. That's not his game. So he went back down to the minors and became that line drive hitter again that just drove the ball, ground ball, hard ground balls, line drives, high exit velocity. And so maybe Joey Bart can concentrate more on that. And he did. Towards the end of last year, he concentrated on that. The power went down, but he put the ball in play more often, and the strikeout percentage went down. But when you're looking at, I mean, what was his strikeout percentage? Was 38% last year. I mean, that's outrageous. That's almost 40% of the time you come to the plate, you're striking out. That doesn't help move the line. That doesn't help score runs. I don't even want to look at his WRC plus for last year. I'm sure it was just god awful. But yeah, he's got to be down on himself, and I feel bad because we're the optimistic podcast. We like our players.
Yeah,
we like to see them succeed. We don't say this guy can't do it, ship him out. No, man, I want to see the Patrick. We talked about it last week. I want to see the Patrick Bailey, Joey Bart catching combo. Yeah. You want to see it so much that you recreated it in Out of the Park baseball.
I did.
And we want to see that. I mean, that's kind of the wave of the future. Two controllable catchers for a long time. You have a DH position. So, and it doesn't have to be a spot of power, just defense, put the ball in play and be good at what you do, but just don't strike out so much.
Yeah. And if you're telling Bart, if you're trying to get him to sort of, not get too down on himself, like you said, though, how can you not?
Yeah.
I think the part of that conversation says we have Sable and we cannot move him. And that is the reason why we have to move you, because you have the option and he doesn't have the option.
Yeah.
Now Sable is still productive. He's still got 7 home runs, 20 RBI. His batting average is now down to 248. His on base is down to 320. There could be, I don't want to see this happen, obviously, because I want to see Sable be excellent as well. But there could be a scenario where Sable's numbers look a little bit like Joe Bart's numbers from last year. And then the Giants would have to make a decision on him. Do we keep this guy because of the way that we got him via the Rule 5 and limit the possibility of Joe Bart playing in the big leagues and getting those reps that we know that he needs? And they may have to make a decision at that point. But right now, because Sable is productive and Joey Bart has that option, he is the one who goes down. And, we were trying to figure out, like, gosh, how could they make it work? How could they carry all 3 of those guys at the same time? And, some of it was like, oh, could they send down, one of these multiple infielders that they have? What they would have to do, and I don't think we want to see this either, is they would probably have to send Casey Schmidt back down. I don't know about you, but I kind of like him being on this big club. Now, he's not going to, he's not going to hit 350 or whatever, but he's just going to play really good defense, and it's fun and it's exciting, and the fan base is behind him. If one of these outfielders, something happens because they're on the older side of things, Conforto or Haniger, who a lot of people are down on Haniger right now. I know that why did we sign this guy? Well, he was hurt, and I want to give him a chance. You want because he's got power. He's done it in the big leagues before. He's got the pedigree to do it on the club. So you give him some time. But there's really nobody else. Once Jock comes back, once Tyro comes back, there may be other players in AAA right now. And you saw two guys go down in Brett Wisely and Bryce Johnson. Those guys themselves might be saying, if it wasn't for Sable, we would be on that big club. So there is competition on that AAA team to come up, and I think that's good. You got other guys, you got Luis Matos, who's like banging the door.
Yeah,
he's like, hey, I see some food over there. I'm hungry. I'm ready to eat. And he's mashing the ball. By the way, the Cardinals just hit a home run, so it's 2-1 Giants.
Dirty Paul DeJong.
Is that who it was? Logan Webb threw, it was a breaking ball, I think. And the second it led out of his hands, he just kind of was like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, he dropped to the mound. Yeah, that was a rough one.
So if you're Bart, you should probably be bummed out. You're like, "Oh man, this thing isn't going the way that I need it to go." He has so much talent. A lot of it is probably mental for him. Hitters in the step from that AA, AAA to the big leagues, it can simply be that they have tape on you and they know your weaknesses better than AAA teams would. And anyways, a lot of the AAA pitchers probably can't pitch to those weaknesses. Like imagine like a Max Scherzer sees Joey Bart's zones in which it's got the cold spot versus the hot spot, and he's just like, oh my god, like every single thing that I can do, this guy cannot hit, right? And that's not to say that Joey Bart is just so many holes. It's just these pitchers are so damn good. And then you imagine you throw your 6 innings and then in comes 100 miles an hour and then 100 miles an hour from the left side and then the closer, and you're like, geez. It's probably never been harder to hit in the major leagues than it is today because of how specialized things are. So I'm bummed out for Joe. I really wish that he produced enough in the time that he was up to give the Giants a little bit more to think about. But really, when Sable's got 7 home runs and he's got none, that's really the calculus there is this guy's got 7 jacks. And you have 0, and you both strike out a ton. Joe's a better defender by far. Sable also hits left-handed. So there's a few things here and there. Joe will be up. I know this for sure because whenever you think the things are good and everyone's healthy, then something happens and someone gets hurt and you got to adjust the roster. That is the Giants in a nutshell. But yeah, I'm bummed out for Joe, but I hope that he keeps his head. I hope that he keeps working hard and that he forces his way back up and that he forces the Giants to make a decision. And here's another thing. You mentioned this. Maybe this isn't the team for him. It's possible that is true. And then thus he holds value for the Giants to make a trade or to be an additive to a trade. So there's, he's still a young guy. You look at his body, his size, and you go like, look, this guy's a moldable piece of clay. It could just be a change of scenery. Look at Dubon and how happy he is playing for Houston versus playing for the Giants, right? Sometimes about opportunity and hopefully for Joe, it happens here. I want to see it happen here for him.
Well, and obviously the Giants said in the offseason, we're going to try to get younger. We're going to try to get better defensively. But the situation, like you just mentioned too, Sable with 7 home runs, Bart with none. The Giants right now are sacrificing defense for a better bat. And also, I mean, it plays into the fact that Sable, you can't DFA him. You can't option him back down to AAA. He's got to go back to the Rule 5 team that he was picked from.
Yep.
So the Giants are kind of almost hand tied there, and Sable is creating that. He's creating this situation by continuing to hit, and again playing decent outfield defense. I mean, he's a hustler. He goes after balls. He makes dives. He makes plays. So it's fun to watch him in the outfield. So, and if that, just to clue you in, if you're not sure, the Giants are absolutely going with bats over defense right now, especially at the catcher position. But again, there may be a team out there that looks and says, hey, we could use a pretty decent defensive catcher. We have guys who are hitting 110, behind the dish, who are okay on defense, but Joey Bart might be able to run into a few here or there, and they might swing a deal. It's not going to be a blockbuster deal. I keep seeing these deals, on Twitter, like Joey Bart for Ellie Dela Cruz. Let's do it. No, I mean, these things are not going to happen. It's going to be Joey Bart for like a, probably a single A fireballer with some control issues that the Giants think they might be able to turn around or do something with. It's not going to be anything crazy.
Or like I said, he could be additive as a prospect to go after a bigger person at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, sorry to start the show off with a bummer, but I just really wanted to see that Bart and Bailey combination. I want to see Joe. I want to see Joey do well. All right, so what is some of the other news that is happening in Giants baseball land? Keaton Winn, he is on the big club. They sent Tristan Beck down. Tristan Beck is who was the guy last year who was just up and down like every other turn? Luis Gonzalez was up and down a bit. There were some pitchers there. I forget the names of the
honestly, last year was everybody. I mean, it was amazing. We were talking about this in our text group today. Me, you, Hot Take Bry. We were talking about how I would love to see the numbers. I don't know where to find them. But the amount of roster moves that were made up to this date last year versus this date this year. I'm kind of curious because it's probably half, if not like less than half the amount of moves that were made. Last year it seemed like everybody was trucked up and down. I know under the CBA that changed at the beginning of last year.
Yep.
But still, I'd love to see those numbers because it doesn't feel like it's been as much as last year. So,
all right. So who is Keaton Winn? Keaton Winn was drafted in 2018, round 5. He pitched at Iowa Western Community College, and his MLB career has been a little bit up and down. Not that anybody should be surprised that he's coming up because he's got the arm for what they may need him to do, which is just spot relief. But his minor league stats, if you were to look at his minor league stats, you would go, interesting. He's not really the dominating minor leaguer that someone like Kyle Harrison is. So Carson Whisenhunt, geez, he's also on fire. So this is more about the Giants believing in the stuff and believing the stuff translates to the big club. And I believe he had Tommy John surgery during the pandemic. So he's really getting back to his arm and figuring out the mechanics and all that stuff. And I guess he developed a split finger during the pandemic while he was dealing with the Tommy John surgery. So he's up with the team, throws in the mid 90s. And I was reading, I think it was Alex Pavlovich said that he will touch 100. He will touch 3 digits on occasion. Wow. So it'll be fun to watch him. I don't like the thing about it is sometimes you don't know who are the, like who do you expect to not get bounced back and forth? Like you don't want a Patrick Bailey to be bounced back and forth, right? It's just right. You want him to stick. Same with it, whenever Matos comes up, you want him to stick. I think Keaton Winn is probably going to, his options are going to be used because he is not that surefire dominant player that, that they have super duper plans for. But I want to see him. I want to see him throw. I want to see that 3 digits come out. So I'm excited to see him pitch.
Well, and again, we've talked about this before. When Kyle Harrison comes up, he's going to be on a pitch count, not necessarily a pitch count, innings count. And so this could be the first step in getting to Kyle Harrison, because Keaton Winn, also a AAA player, is going to be on an innings count. So I think this could be the first step in that. So, get Keaton Winn up, get him some innings, and then maybe switch back and forth as the season goes on between Winn and Harrison. There might be a little bit of bouncing back and forth because you add their innings together, and then you're going to come to the amount of innings that you wanted to get for a full-time starter. So it may be like a two-headed monster at this point, and then they might be competing for a rotation spot next season, and this could be a little bit of a kind of an audition going forward.
The hard thing to understand for me is how do they see Keaton Winn? We know how Kyle Harrison is seen. Kyle Harrison is seen as a top-level starter in the big leagues. Keaton Winn, he is also on an innings count or a pitch count. I don't think he's gone further than 4 innings a start this year, and I think that might just be minor leagues wide. I don't know if you saw any of the College World Series stuff, but Stanford pitcher threw like 160 pitches yesterday.
It was insane. Yeah, then there's another top prospect who threw like 130.
Well, that was Bednar, right? That was Bednar when he was in the College World Series. Like he was throwing off it, and now he's, he hasn't exactly 100% gotten right in his professional career. But so I want to see the guy throw, like, until unlike Roger Munter, we're not tracking this stuff as close, but that's why I subscribe to Roger's website, because he is. And I want to see the fireball come out. So that'll be fun. Hopefully, maybe he'll get a chance to pitch tonight. But right now, 2-1, Giants lead. Cardinals have a runner on first. Goldschmidt is at the plate. Webb is nearing 70 pitches, so he's probably got another inning or 2 in him. But yeah, this is a competitive baseball game. So I don't imagine he's coming in to throw the 9th inning of a tied game or the Giants up by 1. But you never know. If this game goes into extras, you may see him. Oh, well, God.
We're using so many openers lately that you'll see Keaton Winn in an opener type of game, I'm sure. But it's good to have another arm.
Yeah.
I'm behind you, and so I can only imagine. Oh, Goldschmidt. Oh, Goldschmidt.
Keaton Winn may pitch now because Logan Winn just gave up a 2-run homer, and the Cardinals are now up.
Goldschmidt. Goldschmidt and Arenado have killed the Giants for years. They've been on the same team for a couple of years. Anytime we play this Cardinals team, man, and you got to face those two guys, it is maddening.
Same pitch, flat breaking ball. Yeah. So 2 home runs off of flat breaking balls.
Yeah, and is Webb still dealing with the back issue? That's the question. If stuff is being left up, is he still having back problems?
Oh, Conforto almost made an amazing catch on a ball that almost went into the stands. All right, a couple of other notes on Giants players. Alex Wood, always up to no good, is on he's on a rehab assignment, and the thought is it's possible that he could be back this weekend during the Dodgers series. The Giants go to LA later this week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the thought is that he could be back by that series. Also, Matt Beatty, we just talked about him the other day. He decided that he's going to be a free agent, so I don't think he is on our baseball team anymore.
No, but he was doing well. He was actually doing well in AAA, but I don't think he wants to be a AAA player. I mean, in AAA this season, 272, 4 home runs, 23 ribs, OPS of 853, 14 walks, 24 strikeouts, and 103 at bats. It's a little less, around a 23% K rate, which is not bad.
Jock and Tyro are back. They're off the injured list, and they were necessary this weekend for the Giants. And Luis Matos still on a tear. We mentioned him last week. We did a long segment on him. And, we mentioned Joe Bart and Wisely and Johnson having, needing spots to join this club. That's going to be the same thing with Matos. Now, the Giants may make space if they believe that it's just no doubt about it. They can't hold this guy, any further in the minors. We've seen that before. Buster Posey coming up and just kind of forcing his way onto the club. And they're just like, okay, we've set your clock back far enough. We just can't do it anymore. And then they go and win a World Series. Not saying that bringing on in Matos is going to get a World Series, but at some point he's going to force his way onto the club, and it would cause them to make a decision earlier than later on one of these older players. Now, you look at someone like Conforto, and Conforto's hitting long balls, average is still in the 240s. But if he was to drop a little bit, and the Giants decided that he's got this contract, and maybe we trade him at the deadline, then that opens up a spot for Matos. I don't think they're going to do that because I think they like the team that they have. But I think it would take something like that come the deadline to trade away one of your vets to create space for your young player or an injury. And we don't want to see injuries. So, it could also be something where they're just like, look, hit 340 and hit 30 bombs in AAA. Conforto's going to opt out of his deal next year. That opens up an outfielder spot, and you'll be in the starting lineup next year. It could be something like that. So, I just love the fan base right now. The fan base is just like, bring this guy up no matter what. And somebody told me we in our video, I pulled some video clips of our discussion on Matos, and one of the comments was like, you need to bring him up now. And I'm like, well, what do you do? And they're like, oh, you just need to trade Haniger. He sucks. I'm like, okay.
But yeah, trading a guy who's not playing well with a 3-year deal is really, really difficult to do because you're not going to get much return for your money.
Yeah.
The juiciest stat for Luis Matos, and I'm sure Giants fans are probably like clamoring for this too, is he has 113 plate appearances and only 8 strikeouts.
Yeah.
And 7 walks. So that right there is enough to say, we'd love to see you come up to the bigs and see if that translates. But there's time. There's time. The Giants are decent enough in the outfield right now. I don't think there's anybody you can move. You can't. You could try to move Slater. You're not going to move Haniger. You're not going to move Conforto because he's got a 1-year option for next year. He's got a 1-year opt-out. So
he would have to be traded to a team that was like, we need one left-handed bat to go and win the World Series.
Exactly. And that's possible. They could do something like that because if, he wins the World Series, he continues to play well, he's going to opt out and you're not going to have him. So it's going to be a matter of what are you going to get in return for him?
Yeah.
Because
probably
again,
not
you don't want to, you also don't want to just dump a player to bring up Matos because you don't know what you have yet 100% in Matos at the big league level. So you don't want to just dump somebody like Conforto, bring up Matos, and then Matos hits 200. Now where are you at? And then you have to send Matos back down, and now you're one less outfielder because you dumped somebody and got not much in return. The start of play tonight, the Giants were a half game out of the third wild card spot.
Yes.
So it's not like, hey, let's bring up our prospects and see what they can do. No, they're there in case there are injury problems.
And Zadie and Kapler, they want a shot with their healthy team to see what they really have. That's what they want. And this is
absolutely,
with the exception of Bart having to send him down, this is about as close as they get Wood back this weekend. This will be about as close as they get to being fully healthy. So I think this will, and look, they go into LA this weekend, and if they can win 1 or 2 games, and then they can size themselves up and go, yeah, we can play with these guys, then that's a big shot in the arm for them. But if they go in and it's like, bad times, like I think a lot of Giants are expecting this weekend because we have the heebie-jeebies about going into LA,
Yeah.
then that could tell them something as well. So I think this is kind of an interesting weekend. If Wood comes back and you're pretty much healthy, this could be like a defining weekend for them. Or at least give them information, because we're not even at the All-Star break. No one is really saying whether or not we're buying or selling yet. But you do have to start to make decisions, in a few weeks about what you believe that your ball club is, and that's why the third wild card is so cool for fan bases, but it's got to be maddening for some of these front offices. Like, what do we do in the third wild card? Like, does this really matter? Are we gonna possibly pass up a great deal to tell the fans that we're gonna shoot for the wild cards? That's a hard job, and I'm glad it's there though, because as a fan base, you want the ability to compete, and you want your team to try and compete for as long as possible. Because you look at the flip side, and you have the A's where they don't try to compete at all. And you have the fans revolting so much so that they're creating like this reverse strike on the A's. And it's like, everyone needs to show up. We need to sell out this park, and we need to wear all of our t-shirts that say "Sell the team, John Fisher." That's amazing, though. I love that stuff. I kind of want to go. Like, I'm just like, man, can I get out there and support
that's
them?
tomorrow night, right?
Is it tomorrow night? I knew it was coming.
Tuesday night. I think it's on Tuesday night, because the Nevada legislature was, rumor was they were going to kind of hold off on the vote until Tuesday when the protest was going on.
Wow.
Because things aren't going well right now for Fisher and the A's in the Nevada legislature. I mean, obviously living here in Nevada, I kind of follow it a little bit more closely. It's on the news. Things aren't going well. The latest letter that came out said, we don't know if there's going to be a fiscal impact because the A's don't have a spot for the stadium yet. I mean, they have a spot agreement for a stadium, but since they don't actually have a spot in writing for a stadium, the fiscal impact from Nevada Department of Transportation is saying, we don't know what it is. Sorry, no idea. If it ends up being in that spot, probably no fiscal impact. If it's somewhere else, couldn't tell you. So there's just a lot of question marks, and I don't think, at this point, I'm not sure it's going to pass with that many question marks. But I mean, look at the Phillies. So switching gears, look at the Phillies last year. You were talking about that extra wild card spot. Look at the Phillies last year. Yeah. They were kind of floundering, kind of hanging around that third spot. They make a bunch of great moves at the trade deadline, and then they're in the World Series. I mean, that was, fantastic. And that's what Major League Baseball wanted. So really, honestly, don't be surprised if a fourth wild card spot ends up popping up in the next couple of years.
Okay, let's talk about what we are drinking. I'm like out of mine. Like,
no,
we went a little deeper into the show with the news section talking about Joe Bart. But I'll go first because mine is Glenfiddich. I've mentioned them before because they made the pre-made cocktail of the old fashioned. And I got the Scotch Manhattan for this time around. And I will say it's a different taste. I didn't know what to expect. I've had a Manhattan like once or twice, but I do lean a little bit towards the old fashioned. But I will say I did like this the third or fourth time that I've had one. And so I don't know if I would get it again. I think they also sell a Cosmo one that if I can find, just so I can sort of taste all of them. But I'm not a fan of a lot of the sweetness in these drinks, so that's what I have to sort of get around. But I just like to test drive them for this show, just to have something different, so I don't go. oh yeah, having another glass of bourbon, every week. Just be a little different. But
Now you're gonna
and
make me feel bad and boring now.
no, not at all,
For my pick tonight.
because you have been so creative in your choices that we even named a drink after one of your faves for the drink of the podcast. But I will say that this was over the weekend, I think, and I had oh no, it was last week. I had a bourbon, the bourbon that we get from Trader Joe's. I had a bourbon and Coke Zero.
Nice.
And I had that, and we're just kind of hanging out. And I was like, you know what? I have this really good bourbon in that I haven't had in a little while because I just haven't been drinking bourbon a lot. I've been drinking a lot of the scotches. I was like, I had the bourbon and Diet Coke, but I would have the good bourbon. And oh my God, I was just like, because when you have like the good stuff, it is such a difference.
Oh yeah.
And it's like your taste buds are so happy. But so I have had some stuff, some bourbon and such, and some scotch.
But then do you feel bad for using the good stuff in 12 ounces of something else?
No. So I had it straight after.
Oh, you had it straight. Okay,
yeah, after I had
That's good.
the mixed drink, and then I had it straight just to be
because
like,
there's times I think of like, should I mix some good stuff with with the ginger ale just to kind of see how it tastes, but then I chicken out. I get scared.
So what is in the Glenfiddich Manhattan? It is. I'll read their little description here. Bright and balanced single malt soothes the sharp bitters and envelops the sweet vermouth, creating the perfect Manhattan recipe, both bold and delicate. By the way, what actually is vermouth?
Vermouth is, I know it's sugary. I know it's red. I don't know exactly what it is. It's probably like a fruit liqueur, right?
So,
Of some sort.
According to Wikipedia, vermouth is an aromatized fortified wine.
Oh, okay.
So the examples are port, sherry, Madeira, Marsala, Commanderia wine, and aromatized wine vermouth. So it's a wine. So you're kind of mixing a sweet wine into your liquor. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Nice. Yeah, I have some vermouth. I do make Manhattans here at home. We have some coupe glasses that Denise bought back a while ago, and we'll bust those out during New Year's and special occasions. I just don't make as much drinks anymore. Usually, I'm like, let me go, and especially this time of year, I'll go and first thing I'll do is grab like a Corona Light, because if it's a Saturday night and I want to have 2 drinks, start with a Corona Light, then I know after that I can have something else, and I'm not like drinking too heavily.
Right.
Tonight I didn't go crazy. I went with the Kentucky's Best, Trader Joe's bourbon, and the the Zevia ginger ale. And I did that because I was going to have just a slug of a rye bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, you know what? We were doing interviews all day today for a new position. So I've been talking the entire day and not drinking enough water. So I was very thirsty. And I thought, well, this is more ounces of fluid, so I'm going to drink that. So that's why I made that. And it's refreshing. It's cold, really nice. So, and I've been trying to sip it, but I'm awfully thirsty.
Plus, it's a little. I'm guessing it's a little warmer today.
No, actually, it's been raining all day.
Oh wow!
I swear we're in like Seattle, because it has rained every day for probably like 10 straight days. It's getting out of control.
Giants did tie the game. Base hit scored Wilmer, and now Conforto is up with runners on first and third with 2 outs. So this is a competitive game, back and forth game.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a Cardinals fan, you're probably a little bummed out with how the season has gone so far. But there are still some, there's still those same names that would lead you to believe that they should be a much better team than they are, and the actual run differential should tell you that they should be a much better team than they are, because they're almost even with the run differential, and yet they're 12 games under 500 before today's game against the Giants. So there's a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde with this ball club, because the first team in the NL Central is the Pirates at 34-30, and they're at only a +2 run differential, and the Cardinals are a -1. So there's 3 run difference, and yet the Cardinals are 12 games under, and the Pirates are 4 games over. And if you look at the expected win-loss, their expected win-loss is exactly the same. So some of this has got to be a little bit of bad luck. They're not playing well at home. And I'm going to say, this is not going out on a limb, that the Cardinals are much better than their current standing at the bottom of the NL Central. So Giants, you're thinking like, oh, Giants should be able to just run over these guys like they did the Rockies. No, I don't think so. I think this is going to be a competitive series, and we have some very memorable series in St. Louis against the Cardinals. So, so right now 3-3, and kind of want to lead into the week here, because now I think if you asked Giants fans if they would have been okay with a 4-2 week last week, I think they'd have been like, yeah, great.
Yeah.
But losing 2 to the Cubs at home after sweeping the Rockies, I think you go, wow, it sort of felt like there was some meat on the bone that we left, because the Cubs are only a game and a half above where the Cardinals currently sit, though them as well. They're probably a little bit closer to a 500 team based on expectations. And so I think most people would say, man, we needed to take 2 out of 3 from those Cardinals, and that would have been a 5-1 week. So like I said, there was some meat on the bone that was left, and I really wanted the Giants to take advantage of that Cardinals series, but you can't then go, man, we should have swept that series too, because they did win in Colorado. And Grant Brisbee wrote a great piece, which is, you probably think that the Giants are always losing in Colorado because historically they did, but not these last 3 years. They've been killing the Rockies in Colorado these last 3 years, which I'm sure, we've talked about it. So we probably did talk about it last year a bit, but I'm always surprised when I hear that we're beating Colorado in Colorado, because even when we were good, you remember Lincecum talking to the baseball, they're jacking home runs out there. So I'm not going to be a selfish fan and go, man, they should have won 6 out of 6. I'm going to be okay with the 4-2, but also acknowledge, if you win one of those other games, then I think the outlook is a little bit different for last week.
Yeah, but if you can go 4-2 every week, you're gaining 2 games, over 500 or in the win column over the losses every week, and you'll take that as the season goes on. But it is nice to have a 5-1 week where you can take that little jump, because then if you do falter and go somewhere, go to play at a place like St. Louis where you have a little bit of a tougher time and falter a little bit, then you have that pad leading into it. Man, I'm looking at the coming up schedule. I'm not going to say it yet, but it is, after this Cardinal series, it's straight buzzsaw for a while.
Yeah, Dodgers. At least they have the Padres and the Diamondbacks at home, but the Diamondbacks are now in first place in the NL West. They've leapfrogged the Dodgers. They are 40-25. The Dodgers are 37-29. So this Diamondbacks team, maybe it's the reverse Madison Bumgarner effect there. You get rid of the guy and you go on a run. But yeah, I mean, we talked about how exciting and how the young players the Diamondbacks have could be interesting, and they've started to play well early in the season. See if they can hang on. Yeah, so the Giants have the Padres, who the Padres are, they're underperforming, I think you could say. And the Giants are probably about as where you would think that they would play. So that should be a good series. Hopefully, home we have a little bit of an advantage, and then Arizona, they're playing good baseball, so that'll be a test. But it's really the weekend series against the Dodgers that everybody's going to pay attention to, and the Dodgers have been struggling a little bit. I know my Dodger fan buddies who are just like, I'm really sick and tired of us doing really great in the regular season and then not playing well in the postseason. And they're just like, the fact that they are still a really good regular season team means nothing to Dodgers fans right now. They're like, put up or shut up, guys. But I've said this many times this season. Like all these series, it's really it really tells us what kind of team that this team really is. I want to say that they're going to compete all year long for that third wild card, but you're going to have to win a game or two in LA. You're going to have to hold court against a San Diego and an Arizona if that is who you're going to be. So I think these next 2 weeks will kind of tell us a little bit about what this team really is. And the Giants, the Giants end the seventh with Logan Webb finished the seventh inning. And they are still 3-3. So I imagine he's done, but he did get through the seventh.
Yeah, going forward, I mean, I don't care who you when you play the Padres, when you play, especially the Diamondbacks are just rolling. Both of those teams, even having them at home, this is kind of, I mean, this is it. This is the test to see first half of the season. Who are you? What kind of team you are. You're going to LA. You're coming home for the Padres. You're coming home for the Diamondbacks. Then you're going to Toronto after that and New York to see the Mets. And I know the Mets are struggling right now, but they're still the Mets, and it's still an East Coast swing. So we're talking like 2.5 weeks of just tough contests coming up, man.
Yeah, and hopefully they're getting healthy at the right time and they can utilize their full roster, their full capabilities. Let's see Kapler go full Kapler on some of these teams. So it'll be fun. All right, last segment. I wanted to save this for the end here because the All-Star balloting, the first ballots that they've tallied came out today. The Giants don't really have anybody. I think maybe J.D. Davis is like the top person so far for them. He's like fifth or something at third base. So no one really on the Giants is setting the balloting on fire right now. But I was wondering who would be the All-Star for you. The Giants are going to automatically get one. They could get two. I think they have a good chance of getting two.
Yeah, and pitching is usually what the coaches' decisions, managers' decisions, coaches. So that could be one or the other.
I think they have two, and depending on how many players get injured and opt out, there's an argument for a third player, but you kind of have to dig deep into the stats to make the argument. But who do you think should be on this team? Like, no doubt about it, who's going to be their one All-Star representative?
So catcher is out, shortstop is out, and I mean, like you said too, I can go into the outfield and dig around and find somebody kind of worthy, but let's stick with the positions that we know. All right. Number one, top should be an all-star this year is Thairo Estrada. There's no doubt about that. When you look at eligible second baseman and you look at WAR this season, according to Fangraphs, he is even above Luis Arias.
Oh, wow.
In Miami when it comes to WAR. Yeah, who is the hit machine? 2.5 WAR to Luis Arias 2.0 WAR. Number one is for eligible second baseman is Marcus Semien at 3.0. And he played a lot of shortstop this year as well because of the injury to Corey Seager. But Estrada's got to be the number one giant to be an all-star this season. When you look at his WRC plus 131 on the season, 297 batting average, 9 home runs, 34 runs scored because he hits at the top of the lineup, 24 ribs, 14 stolen bases. I mean, it's just, I think that's kind of a no-brainer. But what is he, 6th in balloting, I believe? Number 6. I think that some of the numbers came out this week or today, and I think he's 6th overall in the National League balloting. Moving over to 3rd, you know what? Again, looking at WAR, and I'm kind of using that as the number one indicator. I think you can make an argument for JD Davis because of the way he's played there. His playing time diminished a little bit with Casey Schmidt coming up, but it's starting to come back because Casey Schmidt has gone cold at the plate. And Schmidt is now filling in more at shortstop for Brandon Crawford. But JD Davis up there, 1.8 WAR on the season. Heimer Candelario over in Washington for the Nationals, 1.9 WAR. So they're awfully close. JD Davis, 9 home runs on the season, 29 ribs, 34 RBI, and a 286 batting average. I think it's enough to get him the spot. But again, you know, voters are going to look at home runs and they're going to say, well, Nolan Arenado has 13 home runs and he's hitting 276. But, you know, he's just not Nolan Arenado so far in the first half. So I think he's, you know, JD Davis is going to get beat out there. No problem. First base, you can kind of make a case for Lamont Wade Jr., but you've got Pete Alonso in front of you and you've got Paul Goldschmidt in front of you. So those guys are going to take it. So when you're kind of looking around the infield and you're looking at pitching positions, I think you can either go Cobb or Webb and then put Tyra Estrada in there. You could also make a case in the DH position for Jock Peterson if you want. It's going to be tough because, again, they don't go for designated hitters and dedicated DHs so much anymore. When it comes to all-stars, they'll just pick the best players and they'll kind of plug them in that position. But that's kind of what I'm looking at so far.
I think the one guy who's going to be picked no matter what is going to be Duvall. After that, I think you're right. I think it's got to be Tyro. And then I would say Lamont over JD Davis, but you know, first base is much harder to get in. Yeah. Unless that's where things would have to happen. Guys would have to not play in order for Lamont to make the team. But I think it's Camilo, and I would love to see Tyro make that team because, man, you know, he's had a fantastic season. You know, we've talked about it, how his BABIP was way high, and that was part of the reason why he was hitting at such a high clip. Now his batting average has come down a little bit. He's hitting 293, but his OBP is still in the 340-ish range. So, you know, he's not walking a ton, but you know, if he's got that OBP over 340, like that is really good for him for a style of hitter that he is. And his slugging is still close to 500. So there's so much value for him. You know, the WAR that you're talking about is definitely representative of how he's playing. And plus the 14 stolen bases are nothing to sneeze at as well.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. I think we're done here. And as we get off the air, Patrick Bailey just battled. He was 3-2 for like 3 or 4 pitches, and he laces a double into left center field. And really, it was a big hustle play because the ball didn't even, you know, the ball didn't go to the wall or anything. It just split the outfielders, and the left fielder, is that Jordan Walker in left field?
I believe so. Yeah.
He had to kind of make a backhanded stab, and so Patrick Bailey took advantage of it.
It's kind of like the Casey Schmidt double yesterday too. Split the outfielders, didn't make it to the wall. It was cut off, and just, you know, when you're young and you've got legs, you can do that.
All right. So by the time people listening to this on the podcast, they'll already know the result of this Giants game. I'm crossing my fingers for all of you who are listening to this on the audio that they did win. But the Giants are competing. It's fun to watch this team compete in battle. So that's all we can really ask for. We will be back next week. And I have a feeling it's either going to be a very positive conversation about the Dodgers series or a very negative conversation about the Dodgers series. One or the other. I don't think we're going to sit in the middle on this one. So be ready for next week in Giants-Dodgers talk. All right. For Brad, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.